expect something back. That's reciprocal altruism. Or two,
I like your beard.
yeah, there you go. Kin selection, right? Which is people that you share genetics with, you help them survive. So underneath these veneer, ultimately we don't care about anybody except the preservation of our own genes.
Sure, but we are a bit more distant to people who are slightly different in terms of genes, but we are infinitely closer to any other human being than to other species in terms of genetics. So
yes.
I would say it's like a spectrum of how much would you care for people who are slightly different in terms of genes, but who are still people. You know?
Yeah, but the problem,
genetically similar.
But the problem then would be, Pavlo, is the way human beings behave around animals goes against the very notion that you just said and what the Darwinian picture tells us, which is that people sometimes say, I'm not going to have children, I have a dog.
Yeah.
Right? Which doesn't fit the Darwinian picture at all.
Yeah, I disagree. I disagree with those people.
No, you disagree, but what I'm saying is that behavior shows that the Darwinian picture is not correct.
What do you mean? How does it show?
Because human behavior is not...
It's just a dominance.
He saw the WWE video, so...
Yeah.
Should we do a second round? Okay, no problem. So, sorry, I think you were talking.
No, you were.
Or was I talking?
Yeah.
What was the last thing you said? It doesn't fit.
You were saying that what I said doesn't fit the Darwinian.
Yes. Yeah. So about this, the Darwinian theory is obviously going to make predictions about human behavior, and that predictions is going to be based upon their ideas of fixation of alleles within a population, right? So they have evolutionary psychology, which is there to explain what human beings do and why they do them. However, the reason why that field is heavily criticized is there's lots of things human beings do which do not help our survival, such as me and you both give tax, whether we like it or not, for the survival of the unfittest at the hospitals, right? There's many human behaviors which don't fit the Darwinian picture.
Yeah, compromises to coexist in the society. I give money for tax so I can help the people in need, so that when I'm in need, I'll be helped.
Yes, but why would you help somebody when you won't get reciprocation? And that's the problem with evolutionary psychology, because human beings help people anonymously. They help people sometimes without ever wanting something back, which doesn't fit reciprocal altruism or kin selection.
Because that desire to help is an evolutionary trait. It's something that I personally call genetic morality. You know, the example I always give is with cavemen. You know, when cavemen get attacked by wolves, a bunch of cavemen, right? All of them defend themselves, they stand together, they fight off the wolves, right? If one of them hides in the bushes while the others fight or climbs a tree, when he's in danger, they might think twice before helping him because he didn't risk himself to help them.
That's reciprocal altruism.
Exactly. So the caveman who was hiding in the bush will eventually get eaten by wolves, while the ones who didn't, the ones who have the genetic trait to help others, will keep living. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that particular example only explains if everything there that you said is correct and the variables aren't changed. If we change the variables from this perspective, sometimes a hunter-gatherer or a human being would fight and defend somebody else, knowing they're going to die, knowing they're not going to get any reciprocation, yet they still do it. Yeah. So in the cases that you're highlighting, these are minimal. In the vast majority of human behavior, you can't break it down to kin selection and reciprocal altruism because much of it is not based upon, I'm helping you because you're going to help me. I'll give you an example which we can both agree about. We both are having this conversation. We both believe truth is important. I'm not benefiting in terms of survival and reproduction, nor are you.
You're not benefiting what?
In terms of survival and reproduction.
By this conversation?
Yeah.
Not directly. But if we think by different steps to get there, we do benefit. Because, you know, if we speak to other people, if we conceive, if we create ideologies that are better to organize humans together, we will have a more functional society, and with a more functional society we have better opportunities, and with better opportunities we can have a higher possibility of children and then of prosperity.
But that wasn't my intention.
It doesn't matter what your intention was.
But if you say your intention was to make society better, which eventually is going to help you, I can just say my intention was to get to truth.
To get where?
To get to truth. What is true, yeah.
To the truth. Well, sure.
And truth doesn't always help your survival. In fact, knowing the truth can sometimes be detrimental to your survival.
Of course.
Yeah.
And why do you want to know the truth?
And this is the thing which is very interesting. So, here I'm going to make a claim, I want you to challenge it. From an Islamic perspective, I can say truth is valuable because I believe in God, and God is the ultimate source of objective values, and God's name is the truth. So for me to believe in the ultimate truth and truth having intrinsic value is possible. But for an atheist or an agnostic, truth is only instrumentally valuable in terms of survival and reproduction, not intrinsically valuable.
It is instrumentally valuable, but it also has an intrinsic value because of what I told you is the genetic morality. It simply got ingrained in our qualities as humans to want the truth.
Okay, that would be instrumental, not intrinsic.
Yes.
I'll tell you why.
Created by epigenetics and evolution.
Because if it's from a purely biological perspective, then it's a proximate mechanism. Morality is a proximate mechanism. It's not an ultimate goal. It's not an ultimate desire. Therefore, truth from your perspective can only ever be instrumental.
Well, that depends on what you mean by instrumental, but I guess I would agree with that. Except that that instrumentality has become part of us, has become intrinsic, you know?
Okay.
So we can't even change it, even if we decide it. It'll take a lot to change.
No, I think that there's two different things here. The first thing is about us instrumentally recognizing that truth only has value under an atheistic or agnostic worldview in terms of a benefit it gives us. The second is natural selection sometimes creates quick and dirty solutions, right? So what it does is, rather than telling you, Pavlo, that truth doesn't have intrinsic value, truth only have an instrumental value, it gives a shortcut and gives you the value of truth.
Sure.
But from a metaphysical point of view, your worldview cannot justify truth having intrinsic value. You've just been deluded by natural selection to have this belief. And the thing about natural selection is this. Natural selection, we have to make a distinction between adaptive fitness and truth fitness, right?
Adaptive fitness and truth fitness.
Truth fitness,
So
yeah.
what's the difference?
So adaptive fitness is something that helps with our adaptation to help us survive. Truth fitness is, does it help us arrive at truth? Natural selection doesn't give a damn about truth. All it cares about is survival, and if survival happens to correlate with something which is true, then it will make us value truth. Otherwise, it will inculcate within us false beliefs to help us survive.
Yeah, I mean, in a way. Look, the problem with this is that I agree with partially I agree with what you're saying, because it's very possible to use the impulses. To use the impulses.
Another fight.
Yeah, now it's Rajinator trying to fight Ali. Raj, 5 minutes, Raj, 5 minutes.
We're having a conversation here.
Because you think that you got
Just say no homo, bro. Just say no homo,
Why
bro.
don't you do that? Why don't you be a man for once in your life?
He's got the
When
mask,
you
he
got
can't kiss
fucked with a
now.
man, why don't you attack
Anyway,
the man?
let's try.
Let's try and- Let's try and wrap this up.
Yeah, let's try.
So anyway,
and be a man once in your life.
Anyway, lots of interruptions.
yeah. So anyway, getting to the bottom of it, I believe from an agnostic or atheistic perspective, there's lots of metaphysical problems in terms of value judgments, in terms of the way we are as human beings not fitting with the original story. And I just want to highlight one small thing which you said, which I didn't comment on. There's parts of Darwinism you agree with and parts you don't agree with from the sound
Yeah,
of this
because
conversation.
I also, he left. Because I also like epigenetics. Epigenetics is an interesting theory too. You know, about how humans.
Are you a
become-
Lamarckian?
Who?
A Lamarckian.
No.
Do you take it as far as Lamarck in terms of...
Yeah. I heard them, but I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm a Lamarckian. Look, basically, there are some experiments that go a bit against evolution. That they prove that changes can happen faster than evolution implies.
They don't go against evolution, they go against natural selection.
Darwin's theory.
Darwin's theory. I'm glad you know the difference.
Yeah, of course, because evolution has been changing.
Yeah.
It's not just
It's
Darwin's
evolving.
theory. It's evolving, yeah, in a way it's evolving. It's been changing, it hasn't remained the same.
Yeah.
So, in a way, I agree with it, but not necessarily with Darwinism, because Darwinism is a bit outdated these days.
That's something we can agree about.
Well, it's kind of accepted by scientists at this point. But yeah, my point is...
Let's end it there before before another fight.
Let's
These topics you're talking about is in the book.
Which one?
The divine reality.
No, I don't think so.
But, yeah,
Sorry,
but the
what-
fact that it evolved, I think, makes it more trustworthy than things that people claim to be absolute and eternal, that humans wrote. I think it makes it more trustworthy because it evolved, because it changed. And that's the nature of mankind, to change, to adapt, to improve.
No, but there's something, I think there's a confusion here. We shouldn't just juxtapose science and then the belief in God or belief in something absolute. I believe they can correlate. Even though science changes and these types of things happen, the way I see science is a way of getting closer to God, because science is an attempt to explain how the world works. God is an explanation for why anything exists in the first place. Now, in terms of epigenetics, or whether it's genetics, whether it's Lamarckian evolution or Darwinian evolution, you still, under an agnostic worldview, cannot show truth having anything except instrumental value, not intrinsic value, because it's a philosophical discussion, not something that can be resolved using scientific data.
Yeah, but neither can you. Just because you're sure that your idea of God is absolute doesn't make it absolute. Our certainty of something doesn't make it a true reality. You know?
But look, firstly, before I give evidence for why my worldview is true, on the minimum is coherent. On the minimum is coherent. Yeah? Meaning, under my worldview, because I believe in God, intrinsic values such as truth, such as good, right, wrong, these things, they do have a grounding. But under an agnostic or atheistic worldview, the only way you can try and ground your worldview is either using Kantian ethics, utilitarianism, virtue ethics, or whatever ethical system, and even those are based upon certain assumptions which can be challenged.
But I don't think you're different to that, because Islam, just as Christianity, has had rules that have changed through the times. I mean, you might argue against it, but even if we go through the history of the Quran wasn't written by Muhammad. It wasn't even written by the closest people to him. It was written by the followers, and then it was compiled by the scribe of Osman, if I'm not mistaken.
That's not true.
No, Abu Bakr, the scribe of Abu Bakr, yeah. And that's Osman, he burned all the different Qurans that he didn't see fit to be the right Quran. So I would say it's open to interpretation. Who is the actual prophet?
Okay.
Is it Muhammad? Is it his followers, the scribe, Osman?
I would say that's wrong on multiple levels. Okay, so let's start off here. When it comes to the Quran that we have today, the physical copy of the Quran, all over the world, what's the primary way that you've understood the preservation of the Quran? Is it oral or is it written?
Oral.
Oral. If it's oral, then what you just said right now is incorrect.
It's incorrect if you consider the Quran.
Because your analogy was physical, wasn't oral.
No, it's incorrect if you consider oral preservation on the same level as written preservation.
But do you know what the Muslim perspective is? Our perspective is the oral is the primary and the written is the secondary and it's not even needed.
Yeah, but I disagree with that perspective, because for me it doesn't make a lot of sense that something that you remember and you pass through with words is more trustworthy, remains more exactly the same than something you write down.
Shall I tell you why? The reason for that is a fundamental problem in epistemology, right? Do we believe empiricism is primary or do we believe testimony is primary? And I believe there's a very good case that can be made, whether you're a Muslim or an atheist, the greatest form of knowledge and the strongest form of knowledge is testimonial truths, not empirical truths. That's the majority of the beliefs that we hold in our head to be rational are purely testimonial. For example, you're Serbian or Ukrainian, right?
Yes.
Ukrainian. Okay, so in Ukraine, who was the ruler, say, 500 years ago?
Exactly 500 years.
Not roughly.
Roughly, I'm not sure.
Was Ukraine part of Russia at that time? Was it separate or?
I don't remember exactly. I remember the transitions of Ukraine. First it was the Scythians, then it was the Sarmatians,
okay,
the Huns, the Goths went through, then
sure.
it was the Kievan Rus, then it was the Cossacks, the Mongol invasion, blah blah blah.
Okay,
after the Cossacks
so
it was the Russian Empire, after the Russian Empire Soviet Union, after Soviet Union, Ukraine nowadays.
Sure. Everything you just said there is testimonial.
Testimonial in the way that it was written.
Not necessarily.
Not
because much of history is not written, it's actually testimonial.
Yeah, true.
And if it is written, it's written based upon testimony. So testimony is primary. Yes, we're going to wrap it up because he's been trying to wrap it up for a while.
Okay.
Yes, here you go, have the last word. Salam Corner, do you like these discussions?
Very good, very good.